Trust is often seen as the cornerstone of any relationship, but when it is betrayed, the consequences can be devastating. For one woman, the truth of her husband's infidelity shattered everything she thought she knew about her marriage. The discovery? Her husband wasn't just having an affair with someone else. He was involved with her own sister. This explosive revelation set the stage for an emotional confrontation that would unfold not in private, but in front of a courtroom. The woman, devastated by her husband's betrayal, sought justice not only for herself but for her family. What followed was a shocking series of events that no one could have predicted. The woman at the center of this case, Jane Doe, had built her life around her family. Described by her friends and neighbors as hardworking and deeply committed to her marriage, Jane had been married to John Doe for over a decade. Together, they raised 2 children in a suburban neighborhood where life seemed predictable and routine. But behind the surface of their marriage, Jane began to notice changes that she couldn't ignore. Late-night calls, unexplained absences, and a growing emotional distance planted the first seeds of suspicion. John, her husband, was well-liked in the community. A local businessman, he was known for his charm and sociable nature. But those same traits, which once endeared him to Jane, would become the very qualities that led to his betrayal. Over time, his actions began to reveal cracks in their relationship. Jane noticed an unusual closeness between John and her sister Sarah, and a seemingly casual friendship with their neighbor. These connections, dismissed at first as harmless, would eventually expose the painful truth. The setting for this tragedy was a quiet suburban community. A place where neighbors greeted one another on morning walks and weekend barbecues were a regular occurrence. Privacy was assumed, and the thought of betrayal within such a close-knit circle seemed unthinkable. But as secrets began to unravel, the neighborhood would never look at this family the same way again. The turning point in Jane Doe's life began with suspicion. For months, she had noticed changes in her husband John's behavior, changes she couldn't explain away. The late nights, whispered phone calls, and guarded demeanor were enough to spark doubts in her mind. Determined to find the truth, Jane began paying closer attention to John's actions. It was during one of these quiet investigations that she stumbled upon a string of text messages that would shatter her world. They were between her husband and not one, but 2 women she knew well, her sister Sarah and their neighbor. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the messages. The text painted a picture of betrayal. Inside jokes, intimate conversations, and plans for secret meetings. The revelation was devastating. Jane realized that not only had her husband been unfaithful, but his betrayal involved 2 people she had trusted implicitly. Fueled by anger and heartbreak, she decided to confront him. Over the next few days, Jane planned carefully. She didn't want to act in haste. Instead, she reached out to both Sarah and the neighbor under the pretense of a casual meeting. She chose a Saturday afternoon when all 3 would be present, ensuring that no one could avoid the confrontation. Jane wanted answers, and she was determined to get them. The confrontation began in the family's living room, a space that had once been the heart of their home. Jane addressed her husband first, laying out the evidence she had uncovered. John's reaction was defensive, at first denying everything. But as Jane revealed the incriminating texts, his demeanor changed. He fell silent, realizing there was no way out. The tension in the room was palpable as Jane turned to Sarah, her sister. The betrayal she felt towards Sarah was arguably deeper. This was not just a violation of trust. It was a betrayal of blood. Sarah initially tried to deflect, claiming the texts had been misinterpreted. But Jane pressed on, demanding the truth. It didn't take long for the neighbor to get involved, attempting to calm the situation, but inadvertently exposing more details about the affair. The emotional intensity reached a boiling point as accusations flew between the 4 of them. Jane's heartbreak was matched only by her anger, as she demanded to know how long the affairs had been going on and why none of them had thought about the damage they were causing. As the argument unfolded, the noise drew the attention of neighbors. One described hearing raised voices, doors slamming, and the unmistakable sounds of someone crying uncontrollably. Another, who had been walking her dog nearby, reported seeing Jane's sister leave the house in tears, followed by the neighbor who seemed visibly shaken. For Jane, this confrontation was the culmination of months of suspicion and emotional torment. While she didn't get all the answers she sought that day, The confrontation marked the beginning of a long and painful journey toward healing. The fallout from that afternoon would ripple through their lives for years to come, leaving no relationship untouched. The fallout from the confrontation was immediate and far-reaching. The intense argument spilled into the neighborhood, drawing attention and prompting questions. Within hours, Jane Doe made the decision to involve local authorities. She contacted law enforcement, not to press criminal charges, but to create a formal record of the incident. This marked the beginning of a thorough investigation into the events leading up to the confrontation. Police began their inquiry by collecting evidence that would substantiate Jane's claims. The text messages between John Doe, her husband, and the two other women, her sister Sarah and their neighbor, became a focal point. Jane willingly handed over her phone, allowing investigators to review the explicit messages, which outlined secret meetings and emotional connections. These messages provided a clear timeline of the affairs, dating back several months. Law enforcement officers noted that while the affair itself was not a criminal matter, the emotional and psychological distress it caused, Jane could not be ignored. Next, investigators interviewed all parties involved. Jane's statement detailed the discovery of the messages, the growing suspicions that led her to check her husband's phone, and the confrontation that ensued. Her testimony painted a picture of betrayal and manipulation that left her emotionally devastated. John Doe, however, presented a different version of events. He admitted to the affairs but claimed they were consensual and unrelated to any coercion or wrongdoing on his part. He described the confrontation as heated, insisting he never intended for things to escalate the way they did. The interviews with Sarah and the neighbor offered additional insights. Sarah initially denied her involvement, but as the evidence mounted, she admitted to an ongoing relationship with John. She explained that their affair began during family gatherings and escalated over time. Sarah's testimony also revealed her own feelings of guilt and shame, though these emotions did little to repair the rift caused by her actions. The neighbor, meanwhile, portrayed her relationship with John as fleeting, emphasizing that she had no knowledge of his affair with Sarah. One of the key pieces of evidence that emerged during the investigation was a recorded phone conversation between John and Sarah. Jane had secretly recorded the call after becoming suspicious, and it revealed not only the affair, but also an effort by John to downplay its significance. This recording added weight to Jane's claims and provided investigators with a deeper understanding of the dynamics at play. While no criminal charges were filed, the case attracted significant attention due to the complex relationships and emotional turmoil involved. Theories began to circulate about what had led John to betray his wife with two women so close to her. Was it an issue of power, emotional dissatisfaction, or simply a lack of boundaries? Investigators noted that the affair was a symptom of deeper issues within the marriage, though these were left unresolved as the parties moved toward separation. The investigation ultimately concluded with recommendations for family counseling and mediation. Jane's decision to document the events ensured that there was a clear record, should legal action become necessary in the future. For those involved, the emotional scars would take far longer to heal than the investigation itself. The fallout from the confrontation between Jane Doe, her husband John, her sister Sarah, and their neighbor rippled through every aspect of their lives. While no criminal charges were filed, the legal consequences of the incident began with Jane's decision to file for divorce. The confrontation and the evidence she had collected, text messages, and the recorded phone conversation, formed the basis of her case, which sought to dissolve their marriage and ensure custody of their two children. Citing emotional distress and infidelity, Jane's legal team worked to secure a favorable settlement. The divorce proceedings were contentious, with John contesting Jane's claims of financial mismanagement and emotional neglect. However, the evidence of his infidelity weighed heavily against him. The court ruled in Jane's favor, granting her primary custody of their children and a substantial portion of their shared assets. John was ordered to pay child support and alimony, further straining his financial situation. For Sarah, the aftermath was equally devastating. The affair permanently fractured her relationship with her sister, leaving her isolated from her family. The community, which had once regarded her as a friendly and outgoing figure, now viewed her actions with suspicion and disapproval. The neighbor, though less entangled emotionally, faced scrutiny as well, choosing to move away shortly after the incident to escape the negative attention. Emotionally, the scars run deep. Jane struggled with feelings of betrayal and anger, turning to therapy to help rebuild her confidence and navigate her new life as a single mother. For John, the consequences of his actions extended beyond the courtroom. He lost not only his marriage but also his standing in the community. Friends and neighbors distanced themselves, unwilling to condone his behavior. Public reaction to the case was swift and unforgiving. Once the details of the confrontation became known, it sparked heated discussions about the consequences of infidelity and the importance of trust in relationships. The case also raised questions about family dynamics and the challenges of betrayal within close-knit communities. Local news outlets covered the story extensively, turning it into a cautionary tale that resonated far beyond their suburban neighborhood. In the end, the confrontation and its aftermath served as a painful lesson for everyone involved. For Jane, it marked the beginning of a difficult but ultimately empowering journey toward rebuilding her life. For John, Sarah, and the neighbor, it was a reminder of the far-reaching consequences of broken trust and dishonesty. The story remains a powerful example of how a single moment of betrayal can ripple through lives, leaving an indelible mark on all who are touched by it. Jane Doe's story is one of heartbreak, resilience, and the painful pursuit of truth. Her confrontation with her husband, John, her sister, Sarah, and their neighbor was not just a moment of emotional reckoning. It was a turning point that forced everyone involved to face the consequences of their actions. For Jane, it was the beginning of a long journey toward rebuilding her life, navigating betrayal from those closest to her. Her courage in seeking answers, even in the face of unimaginable pain, stands as a testament to the strength of the human spirit. This case reminds us of the fragile nature of trust and the far-reaching consequences of betrayal. It challenges us to consider the emotional toll of infidelity, not just on those directly involved, but on families and communities as well. In the aftermath, the lessons are clear. Honesty and accountability are essential in relationships, and even the most painful truths can lead to healing and growth. What would you have done in this situation? How do you think the parties involved could have handled things differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the complexities of human relationships in the search for justice. Sometimes the search for the truth reveals far more than we could ever anticipate, leaving us questioning the very foundation of trust and relationships.